There isn't a nationwide or industry standard dictating the specific colors used for branch circuits. The color coding can differ based on geographic location and the preferences of individual electricians. However, there are some commonly observed guidelines. Neutral conductors are typically identified by white or gray insulation. Hot conductors, which carry electrical current, are usually black or red. Grounding conductors, intended for safety, are either green or bare copper. In a panel with 42 circuits, a common approach for circuits 1 through 10 involves alternating colors. Circuit 1 is often wired with black insulation. Circuit 2 is then wired with red insulation. This alternating pattern continues, so Circuit 3 is black, Circuit 4 is red, Circuit 5 is black, Circuit 6 is red, Circuit 7 is black, Circuit 8 is red, Circuit 9 is black, and finally Circuit 10 is red. Remember that these are general guidelines and the actual colors used in a particular installation can vary. Always consult with a qualified electrician. An electrician can assess the specific requirements of the installation and ensure adherence to all applicable electrical codes and safety standards. Electrical codes are not uniform across all regions. Different states, counties, and even municipalities might have their own specific amendments or interpretations of the National Electrical Code. This is why the color coding practices can vary. The electrician would be familiar with the local regulations and common practices in a given area. The choice of wire color can also depend on the type of circuit. For example, a 208/120 volt three-phase system uses different color codes than a standard 120 volt circuit. In a 208/120 volt system, the hot conductors are typically black, red, and blue. A qualified electrician understands these distinctions. The electrician can choose wire colors to clearly differentiate the different voltage levels and phases in a system. Another consideration is the size of the wire. Larger gauge wires are often more difficult to find in a wide variety of colors. This might limit the electrician's options, particularly when working with heavy gauge wiring for high amperage circuits. The electrician will prioritize using readily available wire colors while still adhering to safety standards and established practices. The history of the electrical installation can also impact wire color choices. In older buildings, the wiring might not follow current color coding conventions. The electrician will need to carefully trace the existing wiring to identify the function of each conductor. This can involve the use of testing equipment, such as a multimeter, to measure voltage and verify circuit continuity. When extending or modifying existing circuits, the electrician will generally attempt to maintain the existing color coding scheme. This helps to avoid confusion in the future. However, if the existing wiring is not properly color coded, the electrician might choose to rewire the entire circuit to ensure compliance with current standards. Proper labeling of electrical panels is essential for safety and troubleshooting. The electrician will typically label each circuit breaker with a description of the loads that it serves. This labeling should also indicate the wire colors used for each circuit. The electrician can also create a wiring diagram that documents the color coding scheme for the entire electrical system. These diagrams are particularly useful for complex installations with multiple panels and circuits. When working on electrical projects, safety should always be the top priority. Always disconnect power to the circuit before working on any wires or equipment. Use appropriate personal protective equipment, such as insulated gloves and safety glasses. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is always best to hire a qualified electrician. Electrical work can be dangerous if not performed properly. Poorly wired circuits can create a risk of electrical shock, fire, and equipment damage. An electrician has the training, experience, and equipment necessary to safely and effectively perform electrical work. Remember that the information provided here is for general guidance only and should not be considered a substitute for professional advice. Always consult with a qualified electrician before undertaking any electrical project.